Hello, everybody. I am Peter, and we're here on Tales from Elsewhere, and with a very special live stream today. I have my two newest best friends, Bodie and Tom, from Homie and the Dude. We have them on here to talk shop not only about their own Kickstarter campaign that's running right now. You'll see it on the screen. There's a link in the description, but also to talk shop about system neutral design, which I think is a fascinating subject. And honestly, I could fill a couple hours just chatting with these two guys really easily. So we'll see how well we stay on topic. But Bodie and Tom, why don't you introduce yourselves and the Scorched Basin project?
So I'm Tom. I'm the father half of Homie and the Dude, and we are basically a TTRPG content creation team. We've got a small little team. We're American, but we're based in the UK, and we got a little team, and then extended consultants along the way that help us with our products.
Yeah, and I'm Bodie. I'm the son half of Homie and the Dude. I write the books. I'm the one often in front of the camera, the forever GM, and just loving the experience of being in the TTRPG space with all the amazing content creators. And the Scorched Basin itself, though, is our system agnostic TTRPG desert setting, basically. So it's inspired heavily by Mad Max and Dune, and we have tried to incorporate innovative ideas and concepts into this book that are hopefully going to change the TTRPG space and inspire other people to kind of follow that path. So you'll find things like new terrain mechanics, weather mechanics throughout the book. There's a whole new alchemy system. There's a magic system. 3 new languages to learn, one which is based off of ASL, American Sign Language, another based off of Morse code, both of those for accessibility. We want to be able to just spread a little bit about that. And we have a soundtrack running throughout the book. We have voiceovers from over 100 creators for the NPCs that are within the book. We have 5 factions of unique people that all coexist in this basin and fight over the resources that exist here. And it's just the thing we're most proud of, and we put the most work into, and we literally got our first, like, I think it's probably like maybe a half, maybe a third of our book back from art and layout, and like it's done writing, art and layout, and God, is it pretty, and we're just so happy with it.
We had a moment.
We had a moment.
That's awesome. I mean, I love the aesthetic that's shown on the page. I'm going to gush about art really quick here, just for a minute. Bear with me before we talk about design. What's often the case in a lot of apocalyptic games and apocalyptic stories is going for an extremely minimalistic brown and gray sepia everything vibe, where everything is drab. To try to bring the mood down, right? Because it's supposed to be, it's like watching the movie The Road, visually, right? It's that's what a lot go with. And I love the vibrancy, actually. The splashes of acid and color in this art. I love it because it pops off the page more. And I just think color is missing from a lot of that type of artwork, right? So I just love how much things are striking. Like it's just great. There's an irradiated aspect to it at times, right? All of the let's see if I can find like, I don't know, like the reds are irradiated reds. The greens are irradiated greens, right? I don't know, just it looks really good. So
I think with that, dude, so 2 things with that were really important to me and the artist when we were designing the kind of look for this book is the one thing we said to our whole team is we want innovation. We just want everyone to push their abilities. Everyone push your skills, push your abilities, try something new, and let's go for it. And our artist just went ham. There's 7 different art styles that run throughout the book. There's sketch art styles, there's full like color blast art styles. There's, each faction has unique line work and unique like coloring and texturing and things. So, it's something that a lot of people might overlook, but I super appreciate you noticing it. And furthermore, I agree with you. A lot of desert things can be pretty boring. And I think, sadly, as much as I hate to give this as an example, I think when you look at like Star Wars, other than the stunning sunset shots on like Tatooine and things like that, a lot of their desert settings are very drab, very like, pretty chill, basic. Where if you look at, Denis Villeneuve's Dune, or you look at the Mad Max movies, they're just jammed with color. Like there's so much color, and they use the contrast of having so much of like the browns and the golds and things like that within the harsher blacks and things like that that really then contrast it.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So much contrast. And on top of that, the other big inspiration for me and our artist was the other artist, Mobius.
I was just thinking about Jodorowsky's Dune when you were describing this, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Same wavelength. Yeah.
Yeah. And we absolutely love his artwork. Our artist actually has a tattoo of some of Mobius's art on his body. So, we just love that style. And if you look at all of that art, it's those gorgeous purples, it's the pinks, it's the deep blues, it's the like shining neon yellows, it's all the like gorgeous kind of layers that he puts into it. And so we really want to capture a lot of that. That's why, a lot of the sand and like the terrain stuff is just so colorful. Like it's so bright and in your face.
And plant life as well.
Yeah.
We saw a little picture of that. And what we did differently with this book is our first two books, we had our layout artist mold the layout of the text around the art. And that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But this one, we decided to do it the other way around. So the layout artist kind of did their initial layout, and then Alec, our artist, just sculpted art around it and through it. And I mean, it's just lovely. It's just, we saw, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 pages today, and it was
nice.
Pretty. We were proud papas, weren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
I was just catching up on the comments. Stephanie from Stephanie Plays Games is in the chat. Hey, Stephanie, and Ugly Goblin. But so Stephanie was just saying, as somebody who's spent a lot of time in the desert, I totally agree, Peter, about the more vibrant colors. I always think of places like the New Mexico desert here in the United States, where you have purples and vibrant reds and oranges, right? It's not just sepia tone overlaid over everything,
or even the slot canyons in Utah.
Yes, exactly.
They're just these gorgeous blends of browns, golds, whites, reds, crimsons. It's stunning, absolutely stunning. And there's so much beauty in those landscapes that is often missed in I guess pop culture media. Well, even one of the, I'm sure, direct inspirations for Scorched Basin, the more recent Mad Max films, both Fury Road and the Furiosa film, they had a lot more color injected into them and vibrancy than the older, original Road Warrior and Mad Max and Thunderdome and all of that. So I definitely see that DNA here, and I love that. I like color. Appreciate that, dude. Yeah, appreciate that, dude.
So, like I said, we could probably gush about art and how cool it is the whole time. But I do want to talk about system design, because for those that don't know, Scorched Basin has a couple compatibility notes on it for big products, but it's not that it is a D&D product. It's that it's built system neutral, right? It's meant to be plugged in to whatever game you happen to be running as a setting. And so maybe the two of you, when you want to kind of unpack high level what system neutral really means to you.
That's a great question.
I mean, from my perspective, I'll just give you a step back, a little bit of context. I think you have to acknowledge that you need to at least very seriously consider WotC and D&D if you're a content creator, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're writing books. However, I guess it was around the OGL, understood that there could be some inherent risk, maybe risks, plural on that. So we just started kind of being curious about, hey, by the way, we're now, as a family table, kind of drifting away from D&D kind of organically. So we were trying out some different games like Orbital Blues and Tales from the Loop, and more recently we've tried Daggerheart and Cthulhu and these. And so just for us, I mean, a big part of our inspiration is what would we want in a setting for our table. And that kind of started moving us towards system neutral. And Bodhi really is the mechanic underneath the the system itself. So,
just
are
rolling
your hands
myself.
greasy?
Yeah, dude, I'm just rolling myself from under my own book. Just like fucking, yeah. It's honestly, like Tom said, we were hurt by the OGL stuff. We were D&D through and through, and we were going to be D&D creators. And the OGL just hurt us. It hurt our feelings. What can we say? And
Absolutely.
we just branched out like almost instantly and started playing, like Tom said, like Avatar Legends, freaking Orbital Blues, Tales from the Loop, like so many different systems. And since then, honestly, we play in a lot of TTRPG games that are D&D, but we do not run TTRPG in our house anymore. Sorry, D&D, in our house anymore. We run, other systems at this point, because I think, that's the other thing we realized, that some systems are better for certain things. Like D&D can be a cookie cutter fits all, but it's a pain in the ass to get it to the certain places to make it that. And we found that other systems were just able to get us to those places. Yeah, Morkborg, Pirate Borg, Ronin, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I've had a similar experience with that as well, where I still play a lot of D&D because I'm a local group, but I'm not really interested in running D&D anymore as a system and as a storytelling platform, mainly because it's not the scope and evocation that I'm really interested in these days, right? So yeah, like you, it's branching out. I'll still have fun with my boys playing D&D, sure, right? That's always going to be a fun time, but I have fun playing anything with my group, right? So I really get you. And honestly, the D&D space, because of that OGL situation, right? I understand how it would make a lot of creators nervous. Like they walked it back mostly, but what if they do it again, right? It's very scary to hitch your wagon to that. Yeah, your livelihood.
You do.
That's it.
Dude, you're not wrong at all. You're not wrong at all. And so for us, we wanted to design something that everyone could use at their table, so that no matter what system you play, you can still enjoy the Scorched Basin if that's your thing. Do you know what I mean? If you feel like your system would work with it, then go for it. And so I set about working out, because I think the biggest thing that I realized with system agnostic design is it's a language. I'm not designing mechanics. I'm actually just designing a language, and then I just write the mechanics in that language, and that's basically it. And so I kind of had to work out originally, how to cover a lot of things, how to like make sure that you could do the different things that systems did, from anything from like rolling dice to drawing a piece of paper out of a hat.
Right.
I've seen many different ways to perform a check, in TTRPGs. And
do you accommodate pulling a Jenga tower piece out?
100%. Yeah. Perfectly. Yeah. 100%.
Sold.
And so, exactly. And so I think, to me, it becomes one of those of, you just need to be able to interpret it and take it in for what your system is, and just adapt it ever so slightly. And the good thing is it's written out so clearly that you can do that before your session. So if you want to prep using Scorched Basin before the session, you can prep a bunch of creatures and stuff like that. But it's also so easy that you can do it on the fly. Like you can do it as the sessions are going. And obviously, like with anything, when you first get started, you're going to be like, it will take some time to get used to. But once you understand the language, you'll be, like sliding through it really, really quickly, really easy.
Yeah. Well, and when I first saw your campaign launch and started reading it, I kept thinking like, I could run this in my system. Like this seems awesome. Like what a perfect fit that would be, right? That'd just be super cool. Well, I know off stream on our previous conversation, we kind of gushed a lot about monster design in general.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what you could in theory show today, but I'd like to dig into the idea of monster design. Do you happen to have a single stat block we could put up on the screen? We're going to switch over to Excalidraw here. And I thought because I'd just love to, if that's okay, or we could talk generalities. So Excalidraw is, you can just paste images into it.
Let me just have a quick look-see.
Yeah.
If I can pull something up here.
While you're doing that,
oh yeah, go ahead.
No, Peter, I was just going to say, to build on your point about I could really run this in my game or in the world that I'm currently running. We also have I guess, kind of an option. We call it plug and play, which is you don't have to create a new world around Scorched Basin. So you don't have to,
Right.
you can just drop it into, so basically Scorched Basin was created through a meteor crash site.
Mm,
And that crash site is upwards of about 1,500 miles long.
okay.
And so,
Pretty big.
no, is that right? No, 1,000.
Yeah, 1,500
Yeah,
miles. Yeah, you're
1,500
exactly
miles.
right.
So it's a big basin, right?
Yeah.
So in theory, you could be in there for a long time and run an entire campaign in there, your entire world in there.
Yeah.
And we have some actual plays doing that. One actual play is running Shadow Dark in there. Another one
Nice.
I think is running Daggerheart in there. So the other option, though, is just to have that meteor crash site something that your party comes up across in the world that you're in.
Right.
So you could be in, you could be in fantasy, you could be in whatever, a western, or post-apocalyptic, whatever it is, and just kind of drop in there for a couple days, couple sessions, and then crawl back out if you can make it, if
Yeah,
you
if you have
survive
part of your world
it.
map you haven't quite filled in yet, just you
Yeah,
basically take that Scorched Basin book and slap it right on the table. Boom, right in that region.
yeah,
You have that region
exactly,
fleshed out, right?
exactly.
Can I add? I'm not sure with this whiteboard. Can I just drag and drop things in here?
You can copy paste, but you
Okay.
can't drag into it. So yeah, we are in
Nice.
Excalibur, and whatever we're about to see today, there's the caveat, of course, that it might be in process. Oh, perfect.
Yes. There you go.
Oh,
Oh,
nice. Oh, we have it twice. That's all right. So we can blow it up a little
yeah,
bit
go
here.
for it.
Here, I'll take
Here,
over and I'll
I'll
get it.
get rid of that one.
We'll zoom in a little bit. Oh, what a cool looking page, by the way. Good choice.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
I wanted to show you some of the awesome color and some of the cool stuff within
Yeah.
the creatures section. So this is actually the first page of the creature chapter, along with then the first creature and
Right
stat
there.
block.
Oh, nice. So, what will very cool looking page layout, of course. And what we'll
Thank you.
zoom in on, I'm going to we're going to zoom in a little bit here. Just make this. I'm looking over at my other monitor to see how it looks on stream, because
Mm,
what I want to highlight is the actual design of it from a mechanics standpoint. So let's see if we can make that nice and big. Because, like I said, like you were saying, this isn't a system per se, but it is almost, right? It's a language that you use. And so do you
yes.
want to walk us through? And you can actually use, I have it here. There is a laser pointer on the top right toolbar
Oh yes.
that also can help. Um,
Amazing.
so
Okay.
maybe talk us through the Desert Fox and
Yeah.
what sort of
Totally.
mechanical language we have here.
Okay. So first of all, this is still a work in progress. So don't eat us for that. And also I'm dyslexic, so any spelling mistakes, give me peace on that as well. Um, But so what you have is we have the name of the creature across the top here, and then you have the size of the creature and its type there, basically. So you have a medium-sized creature, and it's a beast, basically. So these are, and that is to be interpreted based on your system. So in D&D, a medium-sized creature would probably be like a big direwolf kind of vibes. It would be, a fairly big direwolf kind of
Mhm.
is what I would be
As
imagining
big as
in
a
my head.
man, sort of.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. A big old wolf, basically. Then we have languages. It speaks beast tongue, which is just system relevant. And system relevant just means the language that creatures speak, that beasts speak in your setting,
Mm-hmm.
that creatures would speak in your setting. If your setting has that level of magical, whether people can interpret the language of creatures.
Yeah.
Exactly. All dependent on what you want to do as a GM. Then over on this side, we have something called buff perks.
Mm.
So in our system agnostic language, we use the term buff and nerf to talk about things like giving like advantage or disadvantage, or things like giving a +2 bonus to a roll, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, or giving like a die extra to a roll, or allowing a player to act out a scene that is, maybe has a little bit of assist from another player because it's easier, or something like that, basically. So buffs, positive, nerfs, negative. Basic.
Yeah, and I would like to highlight that really fast.
Go on.
I really like this. So something I realized, and no wonder we became such fast friends. When I design monsters, I actually don't like when every possible situation is spelled out in a stat block in a giant grid of math. right? Instead, give me the GM guidance as to what they should be good at from a high level, and I can adjudicate micro situations. Like, so just seeing that immediately in my own system, I can translate that immediately to my system.
Yeah.
Something that's a buff perk would give them +1 rank, is to use my language on the skill test. Something that's a nerf would be a -1 rank. Super easy. Like, I just converted it with 0 thought needed. Love it.
And then
that's very cool.
throughout the rest of the system, and I'm not sure if this comes up in this stat block, but we do have as well moments where it will be like you receive a high nerf or a high buff.
Sure.
Which then basically is like, instead of it being like a low or medium or just a buff, which is decided by the GM, it's then stipulating like, cool, in your system, that might be like a +2 to the rank or something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Super easy, no thought required adjudication, right? Very, very cool.
Exactly. The next thing that you see here are a couple of abilities. We have sneak and reaction. Now, these are things that basically we have a list of skills that then are used throughout this language. And they break down into physical, cognitive, and social, which you can see just below down here. And then within them, I've broken them down into further categories of things like, in physical, you've got sneak, you've got reaction, you've got like fortitude, toughness, things like that. In cognitive, you have things like willpower, like deduction, observation, things like that.
Searching for something, tracking.
Exactly. And then social are things like wit, charm, seduction, things like that, basically.
Makes sense.
So this one is getting a buff to sneak and a buff to reaction. So anything that requires a sneak check or a buff check or task, which I'll explain in a minute, check or task, they would essentially get a little buff to it. Then coming down to the next line, you have defenses, which is essentially your like armor class or your ability to take a hit or how hard it is to hit this thing, basically.
Right, how hard it is to hurt versus how much hurt it can take.
Exactly. Exactly. So this has high defenses, and it's because of external bone armor. So as you can see then in this in the two graphics, it's got higher defenses because it's got that bone armor, basically, that we're giving it.
Yeah. All right, let's put that
here. And so, we very much, felt like that was in tune. So high defenses, if I was interpreting that in D&D, I would be like, that's probably an AC of between 16 and 18. Would be
high. High. Not insanely high, but high. Yeah.
Exactly. Then you've got durability. Now, durability is like the conversion of HP, hit points, stamina. Like it's how much it can withstand before it's done, basically.
Right. So I'd expect something like this to only take a few good hits to go down at most because it's low durability. Right.
Exactly. You're like looking at like, cool, again, D&D terms, you'd be like probably, I don't know, like somewhere between 10 to 25 hit points.
Yeah, I was thinking about the same, reasonable. Like definitely not approaching into like 30 or 40, but a couple good great sword swings will mostly take care of it type of situation.
Exactly. Then you've got movement, which is high. So again, I'm thinking, like 40 to 50 feet of movement.
Sure, above average, right? So faster than what the player might expect to be moving in their base kit.
Exactly. Then we have abilities here, which is the physical, the cognitive, and the social. These then again, so if they roll any checks or things like that, these are the buffs and things that they're receiving to those checks, basically, and it's what they're rolling with. So that might be a high, might be a +3 or a +4 to a check, for example. And then physical, cognitive, social, pretty straightforward. High because it's fast, it's agile, it's really like quick on its feet, it's nimble in the sand. Medium cognitive because they're sharp creatures, they're smart, they're cunning.
Foxes are clever. They're cunning. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Exactly. And then, we put them as social medium. They glow in the dark so that they can contact one another across the dunes. So that's why their bones bioluminescently glow, basically, so that they can contact others of their kin.
Oh, yeah, and I can see some of that down here in the in the abilities.
Exactly. So then we break down the rest of the creature into abilities and weapons. So abilities can be anything from physical things, flavor things, to then also just like actual stuff that affects combat and stuff like that.
Like this dart ability, which gives them a special power to use once.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Once per day, they can do that dart, which you can see at the top of the screen, which is that
Yeah.
zigzag bolt up there. And, that is written very simply. It's just a desert fox can expend all of its energy reserves to rapidly traverse 500 feet, immediately darting. The fox's movement is halved. And, immediately after darting, the fox's movement is halved and receives a nerf to all physical checks and tasks for the next 10 minutes. So, basically, you move up to 500 feet. Then you receive your movements halved, and you get a nerf to any physical checks. That simple.
Pretty simple.
And a little thing I will touch on there. You'll notice I say checks or tasks.
Yeah. Do you want to unpack that really quick? Yeah.
Yeah, because this is an interesting one that I had to work out, because checks are the standard way that everyone does things. It is a dice roll. We roll the dice, we add something to it, or we just roll the dice and see the outcome, or whatever it might be. If there is a dice roll involved, it's a check, basically.
Yep,
so if you ever see me writing just check, it means roll the dice. If you see both of them, you can choose. Unanimously, it's going to be both of them, but there are small things in our vehicle system and stuff where it's just check. This opens up the board for other things. Tasks are described in our system agnostic chapter as a task. The word task refers to any method other than a check of determining whether something is a failure or a success. This could include a moment of role play, an in-depth description, a use of a system-relevant ability or skill,
Jenga
or
tower.
Yeah, exactly, or even a physical act, which is the Jenga tower.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So it means that then, if you're playing a system that doesn't involve dice, you can still use this, because to succeed or fail, your GM could just be like, cool, I need you to give me a really good description. If I think your description's awesome enough, you succeed, basically, or something like that. So it becomes a lot more adaptable with that, basically.
Gotcha.
I think the next big thing, I'll just touch on one of the weapons, and I'll break down one of the weapons so you guys can kind of see a little bit. I'll go for the first one just because it's fun. Bone Fang Bite. So it's a natural melee weapon. So that instantly lets you know as a GM that it's something that it's natural. Yeah, it's a bite. It's a melee weapon. Then I give you its range, which is it has to be done within melee range.
Yep.
Then it deals a medium amount of system-relevant puncturing damage. So again, based on your system, interpreting that. So that might be, in a system where you don't actually take damage, that might be something like taking a consequence, or taking, a point of what is it in Powered by the Apocalypse? They have like
there's insanity.
Yeah, it's anyway. There's loads of mechanics out there where you're taking points of stuff rather than actually taking a blues. Things like in Blades in the Dark as well. You take like scars and things like that and same in Tales from the Loop. You take consequences and stuff. So something along those lines. And then puncturing damage, so you know that you're being stabbed, you're being poked. At pretty basic. And then the final bit is just an extra bit of fun for mechanics that we wanted to add, which is it can ignore one range band of a creature's defenses. So for example,
unpack that. That's interesting.
So the whole system is based on the range bands. Talking essentially what it is very low to highest.
Gotcha.
So very low, low, medium, high, very high, highest. And that is the range band system that applies to everything in our language, basically. So what that means is if two of these foxes were fighting one another, I don't know why they would be, but let's pretend they are. It would essentially mean that when one bites the other one, it's biting it for a medium defenses rather than a high defenses. So it's essentially just reducing that armor class level or reducing those defenses down so that it's easier to hit. And that's all that means, basically.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. It's once you kind of break it down and you understand what's happening. The next one is again natural ranged weapon. So it's something that it does from range. It does it from a short distance away, dealing a medium amount of system relevant pounding, cudgeling, or blunt damage. If the fox manages to surprise the target takes an additional low amount of system relevant damage and becomes frightened. Oh, and then we have a C page X to explain what frightened is.
Oh, sure.
And what our version of frightened is, basically.
Yeah.
And so it's that simple. And again, a GM can take as much of this or as little of this as they feel is applicable to their system, or that they want to even just use in their game.
Yeah, that's really intuitive. And like, I was taking notes while you were describing this. I'm going to show people on the stream. I realized like the stream isn't to like sell people on this idea, but I'm just really sold on the idea. So so I was taking quick notes to show how quick I could convert this to my own system. So it's a medium beast. It sounds like it's a minor threat. Judging by the difficulties you said here, it's a novice rank.
Yeah.
You said durability low, probably 2 strain with 1 serious.
Nice.
It would gain, let's see, it would probably gain +1 rank to dodge, we would probably say, because you gain a buff there. Like, you almost don't even need to write that. It's bone fang weapon. It says it's medium damage, so it sounds like it would use D12 injury dice. I imagine it might cause a bleeding injury and piercing, and you say that it ignores a range band, so mine would ignore resistance to piercing but not immunity. Just something super simple like that, and bing bang bong, I could be running this in a session of my game. Like, that's very simple. It also helps that my system isn't super numerically complex. I know it'd be a little longer for somebody to convert to D&D, but not by much. Like, not by much at all.
If you're a GM that's played any amount of time and you've done, any campaign that's run through, I would say about level 10 to like level 1 to level 10, you're going to have a good experience understanding of the like progression of difficulty for creatures, for sure.
Absolutely.
And I think your point, Peter, about it being intuitive. So you whipped out this, this version of your stat block, but that can also be done just in real time. So like we were essentially, you were doing that, as we were going through it, you were just like, and you come across whether it's an attack or an evasion or, something, and you're looking at it, you're referencing it based on what the rules are in your game, and you're making a pretty quick decision that isn't going to be, we're not talking about splitting hairs here. There's pretty clean categories in most systems that you can slot this into. Yeah. And if it is close to one or the other, well, that's then your version of putting your own flavor on the creature. Whether you want it to be a little bit more or a little bit less than what's stipulated, then that's up to you.
Yeah. Totally. And I remember when we talked in our previous meeting, I made a comment like, I could go my whole life without getting another goblin stat block. Like, in that I don't need the numbers for a goblin anymore, right? Yeah. A goblin is going to die in mostly 1 hit. It's not going to do a lot of damage, and they'll be sneaky or something. I don't, like, so, for something like this Desert Fox, numerically speaking, I don't care about like whether the bone fang bite is doing a D6 versus a D8 damage in D&D. It's not going to really matter because the thing is going to be dead soon.
That's the other thing is, for GMs listening, this is all interpretable so that you can do it the way you want to do it and play it the way you want to play it. So, again, exactly what you said of just take the pieces that you want, like take the bits that make sense for you and like utilize the stuff. And even like, it's things like when I use this stuff, when I'm playing with our own system, the way I play it is I will use things as they crop up. So when a player tries to hit something, I will then look at defenses and interpret it in that moment, and then that's interpreted for the rest of the combat, and it's that simple,
Exactly.
And so if it comes up, then you deduce it and you go through it. But it's it did just feel like one of those things that felt intuitive. Now, don't get me wrong. Here's what I would say. I very much know that I can refine this, and I want to release other versions of this in the future that are actually usable to the public and be like, if you want to write your book in a system agnostic language, here's how to do it, kind of thing.
Cool. Yeah.
So, we want to kind of release something like that at some point. But it's one of those where it's like, it could still be refined. There's more to be cleaned here. There's more to be made simpler. Like, don't get me wrong, it's super simple at the moment, but I can break it down smaller. And for me, you mentioned numerically, your system isn't super heavy on that kind of stuff. We're not a crunch table. We actually try and go for as minimal crunch as feasibly possible. That's our preferred method of play. So, the less I can have, the easier that it is, the smoother that it can be. That's my objective always. That's just my objective always.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that, because what the players, I think about things through the lens of a GM often, like what do I need tool belt wise, and the numbers part I find very easy in most games. I've been playing tabletop role playing games for like over 25 years now. Like I get it, but what I love is being enticed and inspired by cool sentences in a stat block. Like when I see just the word bioluminescent bones, I start thinking, what story could I tell with this feature of this cool looking creature, right? Like what narratively could I use to construct a spooky scene, maybe where the players get lured out of town into the desert night because they mistake some of these bioluminescences for et cetera, right?
I love it.
All that kind of stuff. Or when I see that they have external bone armor, I immediately think that somebody's going to try to harvest these to make into armor or something. Right?
Yeah,
like
love that.
Those, and like it would increase the AC, sure. Fine, right? Like I don't need, just let me know that its defense is higher. Got it. Yeah, I'm good to go.
If you wear it though, Peter, just remember, if you wear it, someone might spray paint you because they might object
right,
to you wearing
it's not, that would not be humane. But then I imagine these like sinister raiders with glowing desert fox like bones on them, and how sinister that would look, right?
Super sick.
Like that stuff will make a more memorable fight, right? Like a scenario. And the players don't remember if I rolled, they may not even know, depending. I do like to roll in the open when possible, but like, was I rolling a D6 or a D8 for the bite damage? I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Was it changing each turn? Because actually that makes it funner instead of us rolling the same die size every time.
Right.
Yeah. Let me throw this out there as well, dude. Like, imagine in my head, I'm like a crazy night fight with everyone's like they're at a rave wearing like glow stick armor. Like, dude, that John Wick open desert fight scene sounds crazy.
With that
bro.
one guitar dude from Mad Max, just like giant speakers.
Exactly.
Oh, and what Stephanie, I'm behind on comments. What Stephanie pointed out is a good point. I think people can get intimidated by homebrew or customizing something into one's own system. But I think, like we were just saying, a lot of people overthink it. Yes, math in games like, for example, I'm going to say Pathfinder 2nd Edition, with a very particular numerical engine going on behind it, especially for mid to high level play in that game, winging the stat blocks is a little bit trickier. But in general, people remember the big moments with monsters and threats, right? Not the tiny crunchy details. Like I haven't used a built-in D&D stat block in ages, just because like when you look at a D&D stat block, so much of the data listed on there never comes up realistically. It's not going to really matter what the intelligence save is of this goblin. Like that's just not going to come up, y'all. The goblin's about to be fireballed. Sure. So like its dex stuff probably comes up, but there's often a lot of extraneous information I've found that isn't particularly evocative. There's a bunch of numbers, so I'm with you on that.
Do you know what I think as well is super interesting? For anyone who is like, oh man, like I'm not sure, like whether it's converting our system or even just learning a system or things like that. Like, look, it's your game.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you decide that your interpretation of our stat block means this, then you're right. Like I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. Like
Peter's drive to my house. You will fly across the ocean, come to my home game, and like flip over the table and say, "Wrong, Peter."
Literally, like what are we doing? Like, people need to remember that there is no wrong answer, especially when you're interpreting system agnostic language. You are actually correct every time. And I'll give you a great example of how this is interestingly easier. So in D&D, to work out a creature's for example, to work out a creature's spell save DC, for example, you have to, in the same way you do with a player, find out what its proficiency bonus is. You then need to find out what its spellcasting modifier is, and then you need to add that to 8. And that's 3 bits of maths and 3 different numbers that you have to find or procure yourself for this stat block. That's to make, for D&D. With ours, pick a number. Just pick a number. Like that's in D&D terms at least, it's like, cool. Okay, you want them to have a 15 spell save DC? Awesome. It said medium, but you in your head 15? Perfect. Fantastic. You nailed it. Like that's awesome.
I think also, like, if you take a further step back and just kind of look at what we're doing, right? So TTRPGs, another word for that is collaborative storytelling, right? And the dice or whatever mechanism there is to add chance to your game is just to make sure that it's not so prescriptive that everyone knows where it's going, right? That is the essence of what we're doing. So now some people prefer, and rightly so, they can, enjoy the dice and the mechanics and really kind of getting into that minutia of what that choice is. Well, sure, you can do that for sure. And there's allowance for that in system agnostic. You can just kind of drill down and get in there. But for others as well, that you just want to know, is it left or right? I'm at the fork of this decision.
Right.
Just let me know, pass or fail. Right. And now let's continue on with this collaborative storytelling, which is what we're all here for. We're all here to get those magic moments of success, of failure, of pain, of happiness, all that stuff.
Of gruesome death.
Of gruesome death, whether it's yours or the goblin, familial. That's been
I get you. Well, I see Xanforian brings up a good point that I wanted to highlight, where he's had a negative experience about when a GM has adjudicated or customized something to kind of screw over the players, right? You're right, Zan, that I also, Xanforian, because we've talked a lot before, I don't like a pure adjudicative experience. I like when we're playing a game together in which there are ground rules that we're all respecting in some manner, right? Because that builds trust on how the game can progress. And it'd be like in this Desert Fox example, the GM thinking, I want them to have a better wisdom save, so I'm going to treat cognitive as high instead.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Where now it's like, well, that's not really in the spirit of what the monster's evocation is, what the monster's description is. But yeah, I definitely am somebody, when I run a game, I don't run it pure on vibes either. I like when... I actually do like mostly symmetrical experiences where I'm playing the same game as my players to some degree. I did have fun with Cypher system where the GM rolls no dice. They just sort of describe and set numbers. But I actually I like to roll. I agree, Zan, that if there's a breakdown between what the GM, how they're running a monster to thwart the players, right? That's, that ain't it.
I was gonna say that there's a total difference between interpretation, so interpreting this and doing it, and then adjusting it to be malicious is a very different thing. And I think that's the other thing, is that actually speaks more about and this gets into like D&D politics realistically, is you need to make sure that you're at the table where you're feeling like you're not against the GM. You're all on the same side. This is a fun story you're telling together. You should never feel like you're fighting the GM. You should feel like you're fighting the person or the creature that they're putting at you, but you should never feel like the GM is personally like going out of their way
antagonistic almost.
And don't get me wrong, like I understand, look, there's room for fudging to make sure a story is great and people have fun. I get that. But also
controversial take.
Yeah.
Apparently on the internet, by the way.
Right. Anyway. But also it's like there's not room to fudge to make everyone's day worse. Like there's no room for that in this game. And I think that's the problem that people have with fudging as a complete sidetrack generally, is people think fudging and they think the negative type. You never think about the time that, the GM is like, not even just, oh, I'm going to give you this one, but they're like, oh, this would be an epic moment for them to have this, or an even better moment for them to fail this. Do you know what I mean? And interpreting that character-wise, and same with you. And that's a relationship between you and your GM kind of thing, that you need to have that trust there, that the GM is going to lead you and that you're going to like contribute to that and add and bolster it and make it even better. And like, it's a relationship thing, I think.
Yeah,
But,
no,
dude,
I see Zan. I see Zan's clarification there too. Like, yeah, I get you. I mean, Zanforian's really active in my Discord server.
Oh,
I've talked to
amazing.
him
What's up, Zan?
Hell yeah. No, I agree. And I think Zan's right, though. I think it's something that with our kind of stuff, there is room for someone to, misinterpret or maliciously interpret in the same way that you can in D&D. But I think, there's definitely room for that, dude. There is definitely room for that.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
And I know what is it? A lot of people like to say yes and is like the ideology you should have. I'm a big fan of you can go ahead and try as sort of a way to do it. Like, yeah, go for it. We'll see what happens if you try that. Yeah. So I get you, Zanforian. I could see how if you have a GM who's attempting to convert all of this over to their system, but they're doing it purely on the fly and they're doing it inconsistently, that GM will do a poor job with a fixed stat block too, probably, because they'll be adjusting it in real time potentially, right?
Exactly.
I'm not a big fan. The way I run games is I don't adjust mechanically in real time. I scale the encounter from a macro sense if things are not seeming as fun for the players.
Yes.
I'm happy to kill players though. I roll out in the open.
Dude, I'm exactly the same, dude. I'm adjusting. If I'm like, okay, I had planned 5 skeletons were coming into this room and one big boy, multi-skeleton dude coming in. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, actually, the players are getting their asses handed to them right now, so it's only going to be 3 skeletons and the big boy. Like, we don't need all 5 of them to come in.
Yeah, they're having a tough day.
Yeah, exactly. The dice are not in their side today. So I agree 1,000% with the macro adjustments.
What's funny is that the scene you described, you're like, I'll double the number of skeletons. They're having a tough time. Let's make it even worse.
Yeah. It does go that way as well. It definitely goes that way.
That's really funny. Anyway, so that was really interesting because I knew we talked about the idea of system neutral design, and seeing this was really heartening in that we're on a very similar wavelength when it comes to how to set up a monster. Of course, when I'm making something, I'm making it for a more concrete system, of course, because it's for a specific game. But honestly, it's very similar ideologically to this structure, which I like to see. I like to see that a lot.
Heck yeah.
How we doing on time? All right, we're doing great on time. Let me just catch up.
We're doing
on
all good, dude. We're doing all good. Yeah. What are the comments saying? What are the beautiful people in the chat saying? Also,
okay,
Stephanie, you're a legend, dude. It's a pleasure to see you in the chat.
We saw Stephanie late night one night at a kind of a bar at Gen Con, and awesome. we were equally ecstatic to see each other because we were kind of conversing on just DMing on.
Everyone
Discord.
realized simultaneously, wait a second, wait, we know you.
I was
the Spider-Man meme.
I missed Stephanie at Gen Con. I missed a lot of people. It was such a whirlwind, like ships passing in the night. I was just swamped running games, and anyway, next time. Stephanie's also really fun to run games for. If you ever get a chance to GM for Stephanie,
I don't doubt.
I love running horror games with people that get invested emotionally in the scene, because then when the gruesomeness comes in. That's good stuff. Okay, let's see here.
What is it about horror that appeals to you so much?
Oh, that's a really good question. So
you usually pay about $90 an hour for these types of questions, don't you? When you're lying on a couch.
So when the stakes are truly horrifying, it makes heroism all the more sweet, right? What I like to I root for a hero, for the protagonist in a horror movie, and when it's not easy, I'm much more invested in that. When I'm talking about for gameplay specifically, not necessarily just film. But to cite one of the best action horror films ever made, Aliens, right? Because that's the action one.
Yeah.
When just Ripley and Bishop and Newt, I think. Oh, and Michael Biehn's character, whose name I'm blanking on. Only a few people survive, and they're mostly torn to pieces at the end. And that final climactic scene where Ripley is in the mech lifter thing and fights the alien queen, that her victory there is she scrapes by, right? She barely
Yeah.
succeeds. She opens up the airlock again. Classic way to kill
Yeah.
xenomorphs. Like, there's something sweet about that.
Hmm.
And I just maybe I was introduced to horror movies at too young an age, and it imprinted on me. Where watching Hellraiser at 12 years old is a little bit much,
Love it.
right? Yeah, I don't know, maybe. But
Yeah, that was that kind of maps. Dude.
Yeah, that was similar age over here as well.
yeah. I from a gameplay experience, I like when every scene feels like there's like meat to it, like something matters. When the players worry about themselves bodily, like they care more. I just find that really evocative from a storytelling standpoint, and I like to horrify my players. It's such that they start they're enjoying it though, right? A good horror is enjoyable for the people at the table. I'm not there like, make people sad.
Do you know what I think is interesting about that? I think so. I've run horror stuff for actual plays because I find my issue with horror is that if my players aren't all, like you said, like Stephanie, 100% invested and just like loving it and all a part of it, if we're having dick and fart jokes at the table when we're doing horror, it just doesn't vibe. And I find most home games that I run, because it's often a case of people just, a mixture of a friendship group hanging out as well as also then playing a game, it often ends up in dick and fart jokes. And so I find that I actually don't run loads of them in our home games, and I run them more for actual play stuff. And I think your points are really, really interesting there. Some of the stuff you talked about of just like the stakes being so high that it matters so much that like and I'm not talking, because let me just clarify something here. When I'm talking about high stakes, I'm not talking about freaking endgame Infinity War, universe ending. That is big
intimate stakes, maybe.
Yes, I couldn't have said it better. Exactly. What means something to the players, stakes that mean something to the players, and stakes that are, of value to the people at the table, because that's what really, sets that pace and sets that feeling. And I think it is hard to achieve that sometimes. I definitely, and I commend anyone who runs horror regularly, because it's a hard genre to do TTRPGs in, and I respect the folks that do. I really do.
I was going to say, so this will be possibly controversial, but I think horror done well is the hardest genre to really get your players to experience, to really have that pin drop horror where they're literally on the edges of their seats, and they're kind of looking around to each other, and they might even be passing notes to each other saying, we're kind of fucked here, aren't we?
Do we need to like run? Question mark.
Yeah.
It's sorry.
It feels like, no, I was just going to say, like, you've got, whether it's a lighthearted comedic, jaunt, or it's, emotional, or these types of things. Those are, of course, challenging for a GM to run, but really top-notch horror, suspenseful horror, is tough, because to get the whole table invested, you've got to do a really good job of being a storyteller.
We've only seen it in 10 Candles. It's the only time we've seen it work really, really well is during games of 10 Candles, where it's in the dark. Everybody's like, on the candles are going out. Someone moves too fast and the candle's going out. People are so like dialed in for that, especially if you get the sounds going and you get good music and stuff. It's so can be so very immersive. And I think, with horror generally, it's a really interesting space, and there's no right or wrong answer. I actually think so. You were like, I like to shake my players and that kind of thing. I'm the same. I don't run horror, but I run things that are like realistic, like grounded horror of awful things that can happen to people that then you experience, that is more like I guess like what I would class as real life horror, as opposed to,
I think you're talking about trauma.
You're right. No, you're 1,000% right. The word I'm looking for is trauma. Yes, I call trauma. That's that. No, but I think it's really interesting, because it is such a interesting area to pursue in terms of, like I said, music, lighting. Like, there's so many other factors that come into play. I think doing horror digitally is redonkulously hard because
Yeah.
everyone's sat in their own room, just
Yeah,
like
it's hard to get the mood. Yeah.
yeah, the cats are around and
Yeah.
everyone's, you know, there's
Well,
a baby
and
crying
it's
in the background.
Why targeting action horror specifically, which is my preference,
Yeah.
helps a little bit because it's not supposed to necessarily be spooky. Like,
Yeah.
so I have never played a tabletop role playing game that elicited any fear in me ever. Like, I just I'm too jaded from it all.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to elicit fear or like. It's not going to get my the hair on the back of my neck to stand up. Yeah, that's just not generally because it's going to make me smile. Actually, like I'll be loving. But I've actually found that levity can work for tension because a lot of we can take in a lot of the best movies that even have horror or action horror. There's funny scenes in it too because you have to bring the mood up a bit before you crater it down.
Yeah.
You got to create peaks and valleys. Otherwise, if everything is just moody and dreadful, it won't necessarily let your bigger moments ring true. Yeah. Like when I was running these live plays, I specifically wasn't trying to like do it like an acting, like an improv acting situation. We didn't tell people to not make jokes, to laugh, and all of that. But when I was reviewing the VODs, you know, people are joking, and then I start describing something, and all of them get real quiet, and they start going like, "Oh no!" Right, and then it comes down again, and those peaks and valleys actually help with tension, drawing the tension, then releasing, like letting it snap back, and then drawing it, and then snapping it back. Because at the end of the day, we're there to have fun. Like, right? You know, any tabletop game, we're supposed to have some amount of fun, and
totally.
You know, so you let them joke, and then when, you know, like in my game, some big monster picks somebody up and starts sawing off their limbs or something horrible, like snaps them back in. Then again, that's tricky to do.
Do you know who I think? Tom, I think we unanimously agree on this. We think Brennan Lee Mulligan is one of the best in the world at having moments where you have characters, you know, who are so dark and evil that have moments where they break and have moments of levity thrown in the mix that just, like you said, it takes you on a roller coaster. And I think that's what any good story has, you know. And I think the thing that I often, tell me your thoughts on this. This is an interesting take. When you're playing a TTRPG, often GMs go like, okay, I've got to get like some social encounters in. I've got to get like a combat encounter in there. And I got to like, you know, so on and so forth. I speculate GM should be more worrying about, I should get a moment where everybody laughs out loud in there. I should be getting a moment where everyone is like silent and unsure. I should be getting a moment where, you know, people are feeling a type of way, whether it's positive or negative, you know, and a heightened sense of like, I think that's what we should be trying to achieve as GMs, not so much like the actual like, beats of a TTRPG, but instead beats of a story of like, you know, telling that fun, interesting arc. And I think, like you said, making it in some cases where the odds are just so insurmountable and so, you know, real for these people that everyone just loves it. Everyone's invested. And that's the reason why we love the big shows, the people who are doing the big stuff. That's why everybody loves that stuff, is because we do get to, you know, really see those people who are telling amazing stories. And even things like Legends of Evantris, where it is, you know, a lot of goof and a lot of fun. I had only seen their shorts for a very long time, and I started watching their actual play, and I was like, damn, these guys are insane at acting, and they're really good. Like, in between the goof stuff that I see so much of on the internet, I'm like, these guys tell a great story in between all of it as well. And so I think that's the piece that is a fun one to explore. What are the emotions you want your players to feel, and what do you want to feel as a GM as well while you're telling the story of that session? You know, for example,
it kind of reminds me of two things came to mind while both of you were talking. One is, you know, they talk about comedic timing, right? So, but in this case, it's just timing or pacing, right? And as a GM, to really kind of evoke or build or let release or all of these things, those are more, you know, kind of like learnable skills to just kind of understand what's happening in the room, how to pace something that's going to build suspense, how to take the air out of the room. all these things are, for those of you that are thinking like, well, what are you guys talking about?
It's like stand-up comedy.
It is. It's very similar to. I was thinking of like a conductor in an orchestra.
Great
You're
shout as
you're
well.
building, you're building crescendos, and then you're also taking it back down. So the flutes come in and they start building again, and then pretty soon you have the horns come in, and all that stuff, and that kind of, that's something about that resonates in humans, right? We like to have that ebb and flow journey of emotion, of ups and downs. And so it resonates deeply within us, within good storytelling. And so as GMs, I think, it's a curious space to really understand what that looks like. How can I get better at that? How can I use just empty space? If you listen to Abria Iyengar,
oh God, she's masterful, dude.
Her pacing, sometimes, just waiting for the next word to come out of her mouth is painful, or so it's like she's brilliant at just using space, whether it's negative space or words or whatever.
I would say Luis Carrazzo is as well. He, like, again, you're just hanging on every word. You're just like, oh my God, the whole time, and yeah, it's a that's the thing.
It's a skill.
That's the thing. GMing, as much as it's fun and you're having a good time, if you want to like get better, you can treat it like any other skill and just do reps, get feedback, try different things, practice your stuff, work on it like a craft, and you can just get it better at it as you go. Well, and objectively better at it.
And the system precedence, this makes me think a little bit about like D&D in general, because I've played several editions of it at this point. Something that I've noticed in some people's approach to a game like Dungeons & Dragons, as its heroic fantasy, is there is a presumption of success. And what I mean by that is that the challenges presented by the DM are going to be fair to some greater or lesser extent, right?
Yeah.
That this goes into combat as sport versus combat as war, sort of like design ideology. But if the players enter any scenario assuming that they are meant to succeed at it, they just have to figure out how. That's very different for horror, right? In which the goal is not to win, it is to survive. You have been presented with a challenge.
Love that.
Get out of it in one piece if you can, right? It's a different way. And so that's why, a big reason why I made my own game was I was finding the paintbrush mechanically in D&D not up to the task. I was homebrewing it, like I was hacking it and homebrewing it. It's like, okay, I need a different paintbrush, like a different palette here to paint, where the players are not the heroes of the story. They're sometimes just the bystanders, and they need to get out. And when there's this assumption that what you are seeing in the scene, or what's being gestured toward, what just pulled that bandit out of the darkness, is not necessarily level appropriate per se, right? It's not there to be defeated by you. The players sometimes look at each other like, guys, like backing, putting their backs to each other, crossbows in hand, like, like what was that type of thing? You end up getting a lot of that from the system itself, right? Because it doesn't presuppose heroism and success. It's very interesting. So, because I've run a lot of horror sessions in D&D from a narrative standpoint, right? Like using the story to create tension and cool scene building and, vivid stuff like that. But my most successful sessions are ones where I had homebrewed the game system itself to make all the players weaker in comparison to the threats they face, where they couldn't do this alone type of thing.
I love that.
Dude,
I love that. That's a great mentality. That's a super, super great mentality. I think our favorite actual play that we ever did ourselves was we did an Avatar: The Last Airbender actual play where we covered a very hard part of the timeline that is never covered in media, which is the inciting incident of the 100-Year War, where the Fire Nation attack and they actually go and essentially massacre a bunch of people.
I'm a big Avatar Last Airbender.
Yeah, exactly. So we tell this story, and the reason why this story is our absolute favorite to this day is because none of the characters in canon are ever remembered. None of them are ever important. But the things that our characters do in the story are like such pivotal things, such huge plot stuff that we made relevant to these characters. But dude, everybody died. Everybody except my DMPC, which they all sacrificed themselves for, died. And you know, we had a full TPK, and it was one of those where the odds were just bigger than these guys could face. And I mean, we knew going into it, we were like, we know that this ends with all the airbenders dying, so we know where this goes.
I love that. I love the like that heroic sacrifice.
Yeah.
You know that this is a suicide mission, but you've got to do it anyway. We'll love it.
The unsung heroes that, you know, actually don't even survive. And you know, I think that was the beautiful thing. Like specifically Tom's character, he faced his father, who Tom was a Fire Nation refugee who lived with the air nomads, and his father was one of the generals that attacked during the war. So he faces his dad in this like final combat and challenges him to an Agni Kai. We have this sick moment where Tom is getting his ass beaten, like getting absolutely beaten, and then the first airship that we said was actually created 100 years earlier than it is then in the Avatar thing appears. And Tom actually is the first person to redirect lightning. And he chooses not to kill his dad, not to do anything like that, but to blow up the airship, to put them back technology-wise, and to mean that they've got to rebuild the whole thing. And
which was basically my own death moment as well.
Your blaze of glory.
By not killing, at that point, my dad, I left myself open for his kill shot.
Right.
And, but kind of delayed the inevitable for the entire
Chef's
the larger
kiss.
war.
Oh yeah.
So
good. So good.
But it's that moment of like Tom knew, and when I'm like, cool, he's like you can see him like doing the like lightning charge. Tom's like, he's like, it's done, and I know I've got to, and I'm gonna just try and do what I can to survive, and that's it. And dude, I agree with you. I think, dude, everything that you said, dude, I love the way that you think about GMing, and I love the way that you approach your sessions. And dude, I'm jealous of the people at your table. They must really really enjoy, you know, that kind of thing. And I've also never played a system that I felt game wise has enhanced, other than 10 Candles, because of the actual, you know, outside of that, I've never played a game system that I felt has enhanced the horror. So I would be really keen to
I'll have to run one.
Feel a little bit more of what that would feel like, as opposed to the narrative horror. You know?
I had one person who played at Gen Con, because I played for people who'd never even heard of me before, like never heard of the game. And this one person said to me afterward, when I was just chatting with them, they said, I felt like I was made of flesh and blood, is what they said. About their character. And I was like, that's perfect. Like they said they felt exposed in that way, right? Like where in fantasy, you know, you're talking about I sliced through the goblins, like all this, I took 10 damage, you know. But when they were describing how, you know, this monster literally like sinks their teeth into you and leaves this wound that is now a problem you have to deal with, they felt there was a visceralness to that experience, and the deadliness that creates. Not necessarily even deadliness. It's that you feel like it would matter if you got hurt, right? Like for the consequences of the game. Like in one of the sessions with Stephanie, one of the other players, Bone Wizard, he had this build where he could like take his felling axe. Bone Wizard's the best. So, you know, he was like this guy with a big old axe, right? He was chopping down trees with it. And he was really deadly at swinging this axe. And he was so happy with how powerful his build was. And, you know, chopping off multiple heads at once type of awesomeness.
Yeah.
But then they faced this one threat, this cultist that attacks with your weapons, like with your hands.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
And... you know, and when they realized that's what happened, he realized, like, everybody stay away from me because I will chop your head. Like, the fear got into them in that scene where they started to get very concerned about standing near each other when normally, like, grouping together. And his character actually had an edge called Strength in Numbers, where he's better if he's standing next to a friend. Like, he's emboldened by being near friends. He's like, no, stay away, right? Because he was so worried that he would decapitate one of his friends, because they knew that one swing from his axe will remove an arm, right? They could just lop an arm clean off. It was such a rough moment.
I love that, dude.
Yeah, so it makes that bodily harm, each violent exchange, much more tense because the consequences are so high. So yeah, that's designed. Wound systems are usually designed to help facilitate that sort of experience, like a visceral sort of experience. Yeah.
And dude, I think so. We made a supplement. One of the first supplement we ever made was called Unarmed Combat Evolved. This came before all of our books. And it was just like a little like A5 piece of paper. And it was basically just like, because we love martial arts, it was like, cool, in D&D, it's like you can punch someone, but that's kind of it. It doesn't really say anymore. So we wanted to like design something that allowed you to do more with, you know, martial arts. So like we had like a throat chop, we had like a groin kick, we had like a knee stomp, we had, you know, like elbow to the face, knee to the mid, like we had just a whole list of different moves and how they would affect people. And I think, you know, like you were just saying there, it's about adding that kind of dynamic range there of giving someone, you know, some fun options and some stuff that they have to contend with, but also becomes fun, it becomes visceral, it becomes interesting, you know. And I think, you know, for us that was one of those where you talked about a wound system. We basically were like, we were coming up with new conditions. We had like a hobbled condition, we had like a humbled condition, we had a like stunned condition that was like different to the original, and we just wanted to make it more like a wound system where you're like, holy shit, okay, so now like one of my favorite descriptions is, you know, you get injured and now you can just feel the warm blood rushing underneath your clothing, like it's soaking your clothing. You're getting heavy now because you're bleeding I love that shit, dude. So I'm right there with you on that.
It's one of my great frustrations with D&D over the years. So I love barbarians in role-playing games. I love them. But they never let me punch a wizard in the throat to stop them from casting a spell.
Dude.
Right? Like, oh, where you got magic? Bam! Just hit them right in the neck. Good luck with your somatic components, you know, nerd. Like, I want They're not somatic, verbal components. Verbal components. You're like, I want to break their hand. I want to break their wrist with my big meaty sausage fingers. Like, I want to do that. I want that visceral feeling. Yeah, they start to wave their fingers around and cast a spell. Yeah, punch them in the neck.
Dude. So we just made a short literally like a week ago of me literally being like, how'd you ruin a boss battle? And it's the GM. He's like, you're fighting Vecna. And the monk's like, I'm going to attack him. Fury blows. I'm going to chop him in the throat. Oh, it's a crit. I want to break his vocal box. And then you go through Vecna's stat block and you're like, oh my God, every single spell he has requires verbal components. There's only 43 spells in D&D that don't require verbal components. So you're telling me, dude, you're telling me that a clean, like, come on, dude.
Like, I want to do that so bad in games in general. And so, like, I knew that was one of the moments I knew I would need to be able to capture with my own system at the end. Like, I need to be able to do that. I want to, you know, somebody's got their hand on the bar. I want to stab it with a knife to stick it to the bar. Like, all that classic stuff, right? You just want to do that. I love marshals and fighters and people who get their hands dirty in the tabletop role-playing game, right? Like, the one who's got to wade through the muck. You know,
sneak up behind someone and slip your forearm under the neck and do a rear naked choke, and 45 seconds later, it's not 3 points of damage, it's unconsciousness, and that dude is down for a while, for as long as you want them to be down, and possibly dead if you want them to be dead.
I mean, that's very doing that without skill can very quickly kill somebody if you're not sure what you're doing. Oh yeah, suffocation. Not to wax on too much, but I knew that in my rule system, I wanted suffocating to be scary as well. Like, if you get dropped in water and you can't swim for whatever reason, like, that should be immediately scary. Like in D&D, at least in 5th edition, you can hold your breath for so long. But I wanted, like, if you held somebody in the riverbank underwater, like, that's a viable way to defeat them, right?
You have 6 to 10 seconds. That's the rule with any oxygen deprivation or like specifically like blood choke or anything like that. You got 6 to 10 seconds before they're going unconscious, and then you've got about 30 seconds before they're dead.
Right. Like there's this monster that I'm preparing. I won't spoil too much of it because I'm actually preparing some one-shots to run with people. This monster called the Bootyard Bilker, which is
nice.
Which is
nice name.
Yeah, it's a great name. But one thing it can do, and I'm not going to say exactly how, is it can bury people alive in a graveyard. So you can pull them, cover them with dirt. And if you only have a few turns to get out before you pass out, and and if you pull the party wizard who can't claw through the dirt easily, you've just created quite a moment for the party,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
I had a player who was like an inventor. He gets pulled in, and so like the other players like literally grabbed like a nearby shovel, like get him out, he's gonna
Yeah.
die. Like they had to stop what they were doing,
Yeah.
and excavate him. Yeah, Zanforian, I've talked about the Bootyard Bilker in the Discord server before. I love leveraging alternatives to just I deal damage to you. It's like there's other ways to threaten somebody, and I think that's a lot of fun.
Dude, I couldn't agree more, and I love that. It reminds me of Kill Bill Volume 2,
Oh,
where
yeah.
she's fucking, she's like one jab punching her way
Exactly.
out
That's
of.
terrifying, right?
Yeah, it should not have worked.
No,
Most
let's
unrealistic
not
thing
think about
ever.
the
But
physics of
I was
it.
gonna say, let's not think about the physics. But sickest moment ever of her climbing out of that stuff. you
Yeah,
know,
and it's so
I-
tense, right?
Yeah, dude, and like you said, I think what I love about your theology and just your GM theory is you making the stakes so real, dude. Like I had a game a few months ago where someone was like, I want to summon a lightning bolt and blow up this warehouse, and I'm like, that's sick. Let's do it. That sounds great.
Sounds rad.
And they're like, cool, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, cool, you're gonna have to roll. It's gonna be really hard. Blah blah blah. They failed their roll. I'm like, you still summon the lightning. It just blows up half the town as well. And it's like,
Consequences.
yeah, like it's a wooden town that's floating on water. You literally
Yeah.
couldn't have hit a worse place with lightning, you know.
Yeah,
So,
I get you.
I think it's one of those of just it's giving players real consequences, and that's the other thing I love as well. One of my favorite like jokes is the GM. One of my own inside jokes, like Tom got this in our very first when we started playing D&D. He played a wizard, squishy little wizard. They're doing a dungeon crawl. He's like, I'm gonna cast light on this rock and I'm gonna throw it down this hallway.
Classic.
And we're going to light up the hallway so then we can all see ahead of us. Perfect. He rolls like a nat one, like once. I'm like, cool. You as the terrible wizard throw the rock, it hits the wall, bounces back, hits you in the face. That's,
Yeah.
that's all that can happen on a nat one, realistically. He did it 2 more times. It's just how it goes. So dumb ideas have dumb consequences as well.
Pro
They're
tip
kind of memorable.
about light spells or throwing light or suddenly illuminating a space. Pro horror tip.
Love
When
it.
the players do this, describe how it illuminates that space and then the door, and then they just see the door closing at the edge of the
Nice.
light. Or they hear the sound of footsteps getting out of the light. They don't see what was in the light. Something was in the light. Revealing that they were in darkness with something watching them just moments ago. Easy fast track to a tense scene. Because that's something
Nice
you'll
one.
see in a lot of horror movies as well, is playing on the idea that something was watching the characters and they didn't realize. The movie Halloween is peak version of this from the 1970s.
It's that whole handy cam, like shaky cam kind of vibe of like, it will often be POV from like someone holding a flashlight and they'll be like, oh, and then they'll turn and it will be like right there up in front. It's that kind of vibe. It's that kind of vibe.
It's like if you flip on the lights to a room late at night and like bugs or critters scurry away in like a factory. It's like that's gross, first of all. But if you add that to a horror, into horror, it's like what was here, and it's now aware of us, right? And there's something really creepy about that. I love playing with light and darkness a lot. Like lack of information, keeping mystery alive is another great way. When you, like I described, like something pulled that bandit you're in a fight with, but something pulls a bandit from off camera, like out of line of sight. Like wait, like what's that? Everybody stops. Like hold on.
So let me ask you this: Are you more theater of the mind, or do you use battle maps more frequently? I'm guessing theater of the mind.
When I'm in person, we use a map. Not I love the physicality of it, but I'm spoiled because the host of my home game has all the terrain and miniatures.
Oh,
and
amazing.
models.
Incredible.
So I'm super spoiled. I like to have a little bit to ground the scene spatially for everybody. So when I'm running a game online, I'll put a map, but I don't always put a grid on it. Like we don't, I use abstract distance. I use range bands rather than like feet most of the time. So like, I like to have, here's where you are, here's the ruined church. We use a map, but we're not counting 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet. We don't count that. Especially when I'm playing online, because it's hard to ground everybody in the same. I can't easily point. I have run pure theater of the mind, but and that can work just fine. But for complex scenes, I like something to keep everybody on the same page. Just usually not something crunchy.
Yeah, I mean, as a player, when a GM is doing theater of the mind not well, and you just literally don't know what's what, you don't know where
they don't render correctly.
Yeah, it's so, and the guess is that everyone at the table has a different version of the theater in their own mind. It's not great because you're
And my GMing style is one where the players have a lot of agency, a lot of autonomy, and but the stakes are very high, so I need them to be on the same page as a group about what I'm going to do to them if they don't stop me. Here's what's coming, here's where it is, what do you do about that? That collaboration, the coordination on the part of the players, it can be really helpful if you have even just like potato chips representing the players, in the space, just so everybody's aware of who they are and where they are within that space.
Yeah, dude, it's super interesting because I'm now pretty much fully theater of the mind. I haven't used a battle map for a very long time. But I agree with you in of that actually sometimes as a GM, even if I'm doing theater of the mind, I will draw in my notepad what I picture the room to be, and I will do tiny dots and kind of, just move people around so at least I know. But I also feel like Tom said, it comes down to a description-based situation of like, are you a GM that really renders a place when players arrive there? And like you said, like fully, I'm imagining this is such a hilarious reference. The Assassin's Creed thing where the Atmos loads in, and it like loads outwards. Like if you're like that type of GM, then I feel like theater of the mind is easier for you. But I feel like, dude, if you're anything but that, it turns into a shit show so quickly. It's so funny. So
you get players saying, so where are they behind us? Are they in front of what?
Well, and then
where are you?
Also says like you can do this if they're within 30 feet of you. Well, it's like, well, so is am I 30 feet from my friend? Or like, oh, I think you might be 40 feet, right? Like, are you out of range or in range? Sometimes that can get a little nitty gritty. Well, and I still often need to do a lot of rendering when I'm running in person because if I'm running it at home, I've got like children's blocks. Like I don't have fancy stuff. I don't need fancy stuff, right? It's like this is the ruined temple. I need to render it for you, but here are the blocks to at least help ground the space where everybody is, even if we're not using a grid, right? Just note that I'm up here, you're down there, and that kind of thing.
Using like a heist. I'm imagining like a heist hologram that people do where they're like, and we'll enter through this floor. It's like we're not actually going to see you moving on the floors, but it's just to show you what the floors look like.
It puts people. It can help with them orienting themselves when you want the players to be their own authors of the scene. What I mean by that is, if you don't give them some autonomy, sometimes it's a lot of, can I do this? What's this? They keep having to ask, right? It's that sort of mother may I approach sometimes, And so when things get complicated or you're running for a lot of players, it can be helpful to, like I said, Mancala pieces, potato chips, whatever it is. Sometimes we get super fancy at my host's game because he has like big pirate ships and like towns and like he's got all this. I'm so spoiled. It's awesome. But we do need to actually wrap this up. I could probably spend all day or your evening just talking, but I do have to get back to my day job. So to round things out here, Scorched Basin, it is still live for another week on Kickstarter. You can see it here. There is a link in the description to this live stream. I feel like a lot of people that I've seen in chat, we know about it, but hopefully we got some eyes on this. And I'm just going to do a quick mention because we were talking martial arts. There's this other Fists and Fiends. I was actually talking to the designer of this other Kickstarter that's running for a little longer called Fists and Fiends that is action horror martial arts.
Oh, awesome.
Kind of cool, actually. Cool. I backed his project, and he's got a bit of a road to make it to his minimum funding goal, but it's very cool. He's an actual martial arts instructor, and it's all about, I haven't looked through the rules, but it's like really detailed fighting techniques about grappling and hand-to-hand combat. So
I'm going to have to look that up.
Just a little micro plug as well for that. Definitely, if you're watching this and you haven't checked out Scorched Basin, definitely do so. Indie Designers Unite is what I'm all about. So
No, it's been awesome, dude.
I want to thank you two for coming on here and talking about the design philosophy behind it, because I think it's something that is very interesting indeed.
I appreciate you a lot as well, and thanks to everyone who took the time to comment and support Peter. You know, if you do want to back us, go through Peter's link so that he gets, you know, some of the support. We do a profit split basically with our creator partners. So yeah, please support your favorite creators out there, guys. Like, make sure you're subscribing, liking, commenting, you know, getting behind your people, engaging the algorithm. It takes a couple seconds out of your day, and it makes a huge difference in our lives. So just keep doing all that amazing stuff.
Yeah, grassroots approach to this, to your campaign here is awesome. Just
thanks, man.
Kind of bringing everybody together. It's super cool to see. Well, all right. Thank you too. And I'll have to run a session of my game sometime for the both of you. And Stephanie was volunteering to play in that session too. So
let's do it. Let's do it. We got the table.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Have a good rest of your day, and catch you all later.